Hey everyone, Noir here. Let's get into today's Reddit story.
I watched my own brother grin as he said, "My son wanted it more than yours," before driving away with the birthday gift I had worked months to buy for my little boy. When I reached for my phone to call the police, my father ripped it out of my hand and ordered me to let it go, as if I was the one causing trouble. What nobody in my family realized was that I had already prepared for moments exactly like this, and one decision from my dad changed everything. They thought they had won, but they had no idea how badly they had just underestimated me. I'm 34 years old and a single dad to an amazing little boy named Ryan. Until a few weeks ago, I honestly believed that if I stayed calm, acted reasonably, and always took the high road, my family would eventually show me some basic respect. I was completely wrong. The dirt bike wasn't the beginning of the problem. It was simply the moment when years of disrespect became impossible to ignore. Ryan turned 8 this year, and he had been counting down to his birthday like it was the biggest day of his life. For 2 months, every morning he ran into the kitchen while I made coffee and proudly told me exactly how many days were left. "Only 42 more days, Dad. Then 41. Then 40. He tracked it like a rocket launch. Ryan has never been a kid who asks for much. He takes care of his things, always says please and thank you, and still gets excited over little things like an extra scoop of ice cream or a trip to the park. About 4 months before his birthday, we walked past a sporting goods store, and he spotted it. A small, battery-powered electric dirt bike. It was a metallic blue Razor MX350 with knobby tires and black handlebars. He stopped so fast I almost bumped into him. He stood there staring through the glass with his hands in his pockets. "Dad," he whispered, "that's the coolest thing I've ever seen." He didn't beg for it or ask me to buy it. He just admired it. That was enough for me. I work as a warehouse manager, and money is usually tight, but I picked up every weekend overtime shift I could for the next 3 months. I saved every extra dollar, ordered the bike online for $600, and hid it under a canvas tarp in my garage behind some old holiday decorations. Every time I walked into the garage, I'd lift the tarp just enough to look at that blue bike and imagine Ryan's face. As a single dad, I don't often feel like I'm getting everything right. Buying that dirt bike was one of those moments. I couldn't wait to give it to him. The problem was that birthdays in my family were never really about the birthday kid. My parents always hosted them at their house, and everyone was expected to be there. It was always the same routine. My older brother Brandon and his wife usually showed up an hour late with their 9-year-old son Tyler. Brandon has always acted like he's right about everything, and if there's ever a problem, it's always someone else's fault. Growing up, he was the golden child. My parents paid for his tutors, bought him the best sports equipment, helped him get a better job through one of my dad's friends, and even helped with the down payment on his house. I was always expected to be the reasonable one who adjusted, compromised, and gave things up. The first sign that Ryan's birthday would be another reminder of that came 4 days before the party. My mom called and casually asked if I could keep Ryan's presents modest this year. She said Tyler had been feeling jealous lately. I just stared at my refrigerator before answering. "Mom, it's Ryan's birthday. I'm not making his day smaller just because Tyler can't handle it." She sighed. "I know, Noah, but Brandon's family is struggling right now. Let's just keep things balanced so there aren't any tantrums." I clenched my jaw and told my mom I would keep things simple. Mostly because I was already drained from working long hours, and I didn't have the energy for another argument with her. Looking back, I wish I had pushed back instead of letting it slide. The morning of the party, Ryan was running around the house with so much excitement that he looked like he had unlimited energy. I told him I had a huge surprise waiting for him later, and during the entire drive to my parents' house, he kept guessing what it could be. Is it a giant Lego set? A new game system? Maybe we're going to the water park? I just smiled and let him guess. I wanted his imagination to make the moment even more special. Before we left, I loaded the dirt bike into the back of my SUV, covered it completely with a thick moving blanket, and made Ryan promise he wouldn't look. He covered his eyes with both hands and seriously promised he would not peek. When we arrived at my parents' house, things were already loud and chaotic. Brandon's huge lifted truck was parked crooked across the driveway, taking up 2 spots, with country music blasting from the speakers. Brandon stood on the porch and gave me that same arrogant half-smile he always wears, the one that makes him look like he's talking down to someone. "Hey, you're late!" he shouted over the music. We were actually 10 minutes early. The first part of the party went pretty normally. There was a cake sitting on the kitchen counter, cheap balloons hanging unevenly on the walls, and my dad was outside by the grill like he was guarding it. Ryan opened a few simple gifts from my parents and relatives, some socks, a science book, a basic board game. He smiled and thanked everyone for every single gift. But I noticed he kept looking out the window toward my SUV, barely able to contain himself because he knew something bigger was coming. Finally, I went outside, opened the trunk, and pulled out the dirt bike. My heart was racing. I felt that feeling every parent hopes for, that moment where you know you did something special for your child. I slowly pushed the bike onto the grass and rang the small silver bell on the handlebars. Ryan froze. His mouth dropped open. He didn't scream or jump around. He just stared at the blue bike like he couldn't believe it was real. "Dad," he whispered. Is that really mine?" I smiled and nodded. The next second, he ran across the yard and hugged me so hard he almost knocked the air out of me. It was perfect. A happy kid, an amazing gift, and a memory I thought we would both remember forever. But then I looked up. Brandon was standing nearby, watching us. His jaw was tight, and his eyes were locked on the dirt bike. Tyler had gone quiet too. He was staring at it with that familiar jealous look I had seen before. The kind of look that said, "Someone else has something I want, and my dad is going to do something about it." Brandon slowly walked over with a beer in his hand. He crouched beside the bike and started examining it like he was inspecting a used vehicle. "Wow," he said loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear. "That's a pretty expensive machine." Then he stood up and looked directly at me. "Didn't Mom talk to you about keeping things simple this year, Noah?" I felt my anger rising, but I kept my voice calm because Ryan was standing right there. "It's my son's birthday, Brandon. I bought this with my own money." Brandon rolled his eyes. "Yeah, but you know how kids are. They compare everything. Someone gets something bigger and feelings get hurt." He reached down and messed up Tyler's hair. "Right, buddy? Doesn't seem very fair, does it?" Tyler crossed his arms and stared at Ryan. My mom immediately stepped in, wiping her hands on her apron and announcing that it was time to cut the cake. She was clearly trying to change the subject and stop things from getting worse. The tension disappeared, or at least I thought it did. For the next 45 minutes, I stood outside watching Ryan carefully ride slow circles around the empty part of the driveway. He laughed every time he pressed the throttle and heard the little electric motor. Eventually, I relaxed. I figured Brandon had complained, said what he wanted to say, and would move on. I went inside for less than 3 minutes to grab some paper plates and napkins. But as I walked back toward the front door, I heard the sound of a truck tailgate slamming shut. I looked through the living room window, and that's when I saw Brandon aggressively lifting my son's brand new dirt bike into the back of his truck. For a moment, my brain just stopped working. I couldn't understand what I was seeing. Then the shock turned into pure adrenaline. I dropped the paper plates in my hands, rushed through the front door, and ran down the driveway as fast as I could. "What the hell are you doing?" I yelled. Brandon didn't even look nervous. He wasn't surprised. He wasn't embarrassed. He simply closed the tailgate, brushed his hands off, and turned around with that same arrogant smile on his face. "Relax, Noah. I'm just taking it to my house for a little while." He pointed toward his son. Tyler is really upset right now, and honestly, it's pretty selfish of you to put an expensive toy like this right in front of him. You can always buy Ryan another one later. That was the moment something inside me changed. I didn't explode with anger. I didn't start screaming. It was something deeper than that. It felt like something inside me finally broke after years of being pushed down and ignored. I looked past Brandon and saw Ryan standing on the porch. My son looked completely crushed. His little hands were squeezed into fists, and his bottom lip was shaking as he tried with everything he had not to cry in front of everyone. I didn't just stand there. I ran straight to Brandon's truck, grabbed the tailgate, and demanded that he put my son's bike back. Brandon shoved me hard enough that I stumbled backward, then slammed the tailgate closed. I reached for the driver's door, ready to stop him. Before I could, my parents came rushing outside. My mom grabbed my arm tightly and pulled me back. "Noah, please," she whispered, trying to keep her voice down so the neighbors wouldn't hear. "Don't turn this into a huge scene. The kids can feel the tension. Just let him take it for now." I stared at her, completely shocked. He is stealing my son's birthday present. He literally just took it from our driveway. Even saying it out loud sounded unreal. My dad stepped forward with a serious expression. "He's not stealing anything. He's just borrowing it to keep the peace. You heard him." Then he added, "You make enough money. You can buy Ryan another one tomorrow. Stop overreacting and ruining the party. This isn't the end of the world." I stood there frozen, trying to process how easily they were dismissing what had just happened. Brandon calmly climbed into his truck, started the engine, and began driving away with my son's birthday gift in the back. I hit the side of the truck as he pulled out. "You're stealing my son's property! I'm calling the police!" My dad wrapped his arms around me from behind, while my mom kept telling me to calm down. By the time I finally got away from them, Brandon was already halfway down the street. I pulled out my phone and was about to call 911. Then I heard Ryan crying. I stopped. He slowly walked down the porch steps, grabbed the sleeve of my shirt, and looked up at me with tears running down his face. "Dad," he whispered. "Did I do something wrong? Was I not supposed to ride it?" That question hurt worse than anything Brandon had done. It felt like someone had stabbed me right in the chest. I dropped to my knees, pulled Ryan into my arms, and held him tightly. "No, Ryan. You did absolutely nothing wrong. None of this is your fault." I looked him in the eyes. "I promise you, I'm going to fix this." The rest of the party felt like a strange nightmare. We went back inside, and my family acted like nothing had happened. They ate cake. They laughed. They drank their drinks. My dad even made some stupid joke about the weather. Nobody talked about the dirt bike. Nobody asked where Brandon went. Everyone silently agreed that keeping Brandon happy mattered more than what had just happened to my son. I watched Ryan sit there, pushing his cake around his plate with a plastic fork. The excitement he had earlier was completely gone, and something inside me became cold and certain. When we finally left, my mom hugged me at the door. "Don't hold on to this, Noah," she whispered. "Family is more important than things." I didn't answer. I just put Ryan in the car and drove home. The entire ride was silent. That night, Ryan asked if he could sleep in my bed. He hadn't asked that since he was little. As he curled up under the blankets, he quietly asked, "Dad, does Tyler need the bike more than me because he's better than me?" I felt tears burning in my own eyes. I ran my hand through his hair. "No, buddy. Tyler isn't better than you." I swallowed hard. Sometimes adults make selfish choices and hurt people without caring about the damage they cause. But you are the best kid in the world, and I love you more than anything. He eventually fell asleep, holding onto my shirt. I stayed awake all night, staring at the ceiling and replaying everything that happened, over and over again. And by the time the sun came up, I knew one thing. I was done. I was completely finished with them. Not temporarily angry, not just hurt. I was done for good. Update 1. The next morning, my phone started blowing up with messages before I even had a chance to make my coffee. My mom texted me first. "Hope you've calmed down, honey. Let's just move past this." Then there was a voicemail from my dad telling me I needed to be the bigger person. A few minutes later, Brandon sent his message. "No hard feelings, bro. Kids are kids. You know how it is. Tyler loves the bike." I ignored every single one. Instead, I opened the family group chat with my parents and Brandon and sent one simple message. "I want the dirt bike returned to my house by 5 p.m. today." Brandon responded almost immediately. "LOL, relax. We can talk later. You're being dramatic." 5 o'clock came. The bike was still gone. I called Brandon, but it went straight to voicemail. Then I called my parents. My mom answered, and within seconds, she switched into her usual role of trying to keep the peace. She told me Tyler had already become attached to the bike, and that taking it away from him now would be unfair. Then she actually asked me why I was acting so obsessed over a piece of metal. "Because it wasn't yours to give away, Mom," I said calmly. "And it wasn't Brandon's to take." She let out a frustrated sigh. "Noah, you're making this way harder than it needs to be." I hung up. Over the next few days, things only got worse. Brandon posted a picture on Facebook of Tyler riding Ryan's blue dirt bike. The caption said, "Teaching my boy that sharing is caring. Best weekend ever." My mom liked the post. My dad commented with 3 fire emojis. It was obvious what they were doing. They wanted me to see that they didn't care, that they believed they could do whatever they wanted and I couldn't stop them. But they misunderstood something. I wasn't sitting around feeling sorry for myself anymore. I was making plans. The first thing I did was drive to a high-end motorsports dealership in the next town. I didn't buy another $600 Razor. I bought Ryan a brand new Yamaha PW50 Mini motorcycle for $1,200. It was bright red, powerful, loud, and built like a real little dirt bike. I also bought him a quality helmet, riding boots, and protective gear. When I got home, I parked the motorcycle right in the middle of our living room and waited for Ryan to come home from school. The second he walked through the door and saw it, he dropped his backpack. He looked at the bike. Then he looked at me. But instead of excitement, I saw fear in his eyes. "Dad," he said quietly, "is someone going to take this one away too?" That question broke my heart. I got down on one knee, looked him directly in the eyes, and said, "Nobody is ever taking anything from you again. I swear." The smile that appeared on his face felt like watching the sun come out after a terrible storm. That weekend, we spent hours at a local dirt track. Ryan laughed so hard, he got the hiccups. That sound became the reason I kept going. While he slept that night, I started looking into everything. For years, I had been the reliable son. I was the one who fixed my parents' computers, helped them organize their paperwork, and handled their taxes when they needed help. I still had access to their main desktop because I had set up their antivirus software years earlier. I also still had administrative access to their shared cloud storage because they had specifically given it to me to manage their backups. I wasn't searching for anything particular. At first, I only wanted to know if they had helped Brandon pay for the bike. But what I discovered was far worse. I found a hidden iMessage group synced to their cloud account. It was called Family Updates. The members were my parents, Brandon, and Brandon's wife. I wasn't included. I started scrolling through the messages. They talked about me constantly. They made fun of my job. They called me boring. They said I was too sensitive. They even referred to me as their convenient ATM. Then I found the message that made my entire body go cold. It was from my mom, sent 2 days before Ryan's birthday party. "Brandon, I know Tyler wants the dirt bike Noah is buying. Just let Noah bring it to the party, and you can take it home afterward. Noah won't fight back. He never does. It's easier to let you have it than deal with Tyler crying. We'll handle Noah's feelings. I stared at the screen. They had planned everything. This wasn't Brandon making a selfish decision in the moment. This was intentional. My own parents had helped him take my son's birthday gift. But that wasn't even the worst thing I found. I kept digging through their saved financial documents and discovered a folder labeled Brandon House. Inside were years of bank statements. 5 years earlier, when I was 29, I had temporarily co-signed a small loan to help my parents repair their roof. I paid my part. The repairs were completed. I thought that chapter was closed. It wasn't. The documents showed that my parents had secretly kept the shared credit line open. Then they forged my digital signature on an extension agreement. After that, they used it. The balance? $45,000. And every dollar went directly toward Brandon. Home renovations, his wife's luxury vehicle lease, business investments that failed. They had used my name, damaged my credit, and put my financial future at risk just to continue funding their favorite son's lifestyle. The latest bank notice was the final blow. They were already 3 months behind on payments, and the bank was threatening collections. If that happened, my perfect credit score would be destroyed. I sat in front of my computer at 3 a.m, completely consumed by anger. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just started printing. Every message, every bank statement, every transfer record. I put everything into one thick binder that proved exactly what they had done. The next morning, I took the day off and went straight to the bank. Since my name was still listed as the primary guarantor, I had legal control over the account. I explained that the recent extensions and withdrawals were unauthorized, opened a fraud investigation, froze the credit line, and removed my parents' access. The manager warned me that the $45,000 balance would immediately go into default, and the bank could come after my parents. "Please proceed," I said. After that, I went to the police station. I filed a theft report against Brandon and provided everything: the bike receipt, serial number, his address, license plate, and screenshots of his Facebook post showing the stolen dirt bike. I made it clear I wanted charges pressed. Then I went home, placed the binder and police report into an envelope, and waited. 2 days later, my mom called. "Noah, we're having a family dinner Sunday. Brandon wants to apologize and clear things up. We just want the family together again. Bring Ryan." I knew exactly what they were planning. They wanted to surround me with relatives, get Brandon to give a fake apology, and pressure me into dropping everything. "I'll come," I said. "But Ryan is staying with a babysitter. This is an adult conversation." She happily agreed, not realizing what was coming. Update 2. When I arrived at my parents' house, the driveway was full of cars. Aunts, uncles, and cousins were all there. They didn't invite everyone to fix things. They wanted witnesses. I walked inside with only my keys and the envelope under my arm. Brandon was sitting in my dad's chair with a beer, looking completely comfortable. My dad smiled. "Noah, let's just put this misunderstanding behind us." I ignored him and stood in the middle of the room. Everyone slowly went quiet. My mom looked at Brandon. "Go ahead. Say what you wanted to say." Brandon stood up and sighed. "Look, Noah, I'm sorry you got upset about the bike. Tyler really liked it, and I thought since you're doing well, you wouldn't mind helping your nephew. No hard feelings?" He reached out his hand. I looked at him, then at my parents, then at everyone watching. "We're not good," I said. My dad immediately stepped in. He apologized. "You're really destroying this family over a kid's bike?" I opened the envelope. "It's not about the bike anymore." I pulled out the documents. "It's about the $45,000 you and Mom stole from me to pay for Brandon's house. The room went completely silent. My mom's face turned pale. Brandon froze. His eyes immediately moved toward my parents. "What are you talking about?" Someone in the back of the room quietly asked what was going on. I grabbed the first stack of documents and placed them on the coffee table. 5 years ago, I helped you with a roof repair loan. You kept the account open, forged my signature, extended the credit line, and took out $45,000. I tapped the papers. These bank statements show every transfer. Every dollar went straight into Brandon's account. I looked at my brother. He was no longer smiling. He was sweating. "So how's that new kitchen, Brandon? Enjoying those granite countertops I apparently paid for?" "Noah, stop!" my mom shouted. "This is a private family matter. You're twisting everything." "No," I said. "The truth is that you were 3 months behind on payments, and you were about to destroy my credit." I pulled out another document. On Thursday, I went to the bank. I reported the forged signatures as fraud. The account is frozen, and the loan is now in default. The bank wants the full $45,000 back. If you can't pay, they can put a lien on this house. My dad dropped onto the couch, completely stunned. Brandon went pale. "You froze the money?" he said. "My mortgage comes from that account. My truck payment is connected to it." I looked at him. "Sounds like your problem, Brandon." He stepped forward, furious. "You ruined my life over a stupid toy." I pulled out the final document. "No, I'm ruining your life because you're a thief." Then I dropped the police report onto the table. The room went silent. "What is that?" my aunt asked. "A police report for grand theft." I looked directly at Brandon. "I filed it 3 days ago. I gave them your information, the bike details, and proof that you had stolen property worth more than $500. Brandon's wife covered her face, completely horrified. I kept going. "You stole my 8-year-old son's birthday gift, watched him cry, and drove away with it. You and my parents planned this." I pulled out the printed messages from their group chat and threw them on the table. "I know everything. I know you planned to take the bike before the party. I know you thought I would never fight back." I looked around the room. The ATM is closed. My relatives stared at my parents with disgust. "You have 24 hours to return the dirt bike to my driveway in perfect condition," I told Brandon. "If you do, I'll inform the detective that the property was returned. If you don't, I'll let the police handle it. And for the $45,000 fraud, I will fully cooperate with the bank." I didn't wait for anyone to respond. I walked out. Before I even reached my car, my phone started vibrating non-stop. My mom called over and over. Brandon sent paragraphs of messages begging, threatening, and trying to blame me. I blocked every number. Then I drove home to Ryan. The fallout happened fast. Less than 12 hours later, at 6 in the morning, I heard tires screech outside. I looked out the window. Brandon was in my driveway, quickly removing the dirt bike from his truck. He dropped it onto the grass, jumped back into his vehicle, and drove away like he was escaping a crime scene. The bike was completely fine. I rolled it into the garage and smiled. But the family damage was much bigger. My aunts and uncles cut my parents off completely. Then we found out Brandon had been borrowing money from several relatives for years. Once everyone saw what he had done to me, they started demanding their money back too. The bank followed through. Since my parents couldn't suddenly come up with $45,000, the bank started the process of placing a lien on their house. Brandon was completely cut off from the money my parents had been giving him, and he couldn't keep up with his expensive lifestyle anymore. A cousin later told me that his luxury truck was repossessed in the middle of the night. Now he and his wife are desperately trying to sell their house before everything turns into a complete financial disaster. My parents came to my house once after everything happened. They were crying, begging to see Ryan, and saying I was destroying the family over a misunderstanding. I didn't even open the door. I talked to them through my Ring camera, and told them that if they ever came onto my property again, I would call the police for trespassing. They never came back. 2 months have passed since then. My home is finally quiet. No drama, no guilt, no constant pressure from people who only cared when I was useful to them. I even got a promotion at work because I was finally able to focus my energy on my career instead of constantly dealing with my family's problems. Yesterday evening, the weather was perfect. I sat on my front porch with a cold beer and watched Ryan riding his red Yamaha dirt bike up and down our quiet street. He was covered in mud, wearing his helmet, and laughing so hard that the sound echoed between the houses. Eventually, he pulled into the driveway, turned off the engine, and lifted his visor with the biggest smile. "Dad," he shouted, "did you see how fast I went? Nobody can catch me." I lifted my bottle toward him and smiled. For the first time in a long time, I felt completely at peace. "Nobody's ever going to catch you, buddy,"